Recently, a teen boy has been found dead in an SUV, originally presumed suicide. Police are now looking into a possible manslaughter investigation. Present day. Sophia is aged 23. 8 years ago, she was 15 years old. 15 years old and thriving, or so she made others believe. The year was 2014. Sophia was in her second year of high school, doing fairly well, and she had a lot of friends. One of her best friends, Martha, envied her. Her lack of social anxiety. Sophia could do anything, or anyone, she wanted. Martha knew deep down Sophia was odd. She never really wanted to be her friend in the first place, because she was so odd. Almost like she made things up for attention. More than a couple years ago, Martha caught Sophia in bed with her boyfriend, which at the time she was extremely weird considering she was so young to be having sex. But as always, she forgave her. Martha just couldn't find it in herself to be angry at people. "Hey, hurry up, we're gonna be late," Martha yelled to Sophia from the bottom of her stairs. They had a court date. Today was Martha's turn to be put on trial for the death of Sophia's ex, Paul Roy. Sophia told Martha and all her other friends that Paul had been missing 3 days prior to his death, but family of Mr. Roy confirmed it to be untruthful. He had only been gone missing the night of his death. Recently, messages had released after the police gained a warranty for Sophia's phone. It had explicit texts begging him to kill himself, telling him no one would miss him, and for him to just drink bleach. She told him to get back into his truck where he was gassing himself with an air pump, and finally end it. Phone records show she called him 40 minutes before his death. Ever since the first trial that Sophia was forced to endure, the turnout was looking great. The jury felt for her, as losing someone so important to her must have left her in deep hurt. But these text messages changed everything for the jury. "Girl, come on!" Martha yelled again. Once more, there was no response. Martha stormed up the stairs. They could not be late for this. She came all the way over to Sophia's house to pick her up, and she was nowhere to be seen. She wanted to confront Sophia after the messages had been released. She knew she would have a good explanation. Sophia was odd, but she would never do anything like that. At least not in Martha's eyes. Martha ran to Sophia's door and slammed it open. "Come on, let's go." But no one was there. Sophia's room was clean. The bed had no wrinkles on it. It was perfectly made up. Where the hell was Sophia? Had she even slept in her bed last night? Maybe her mom took her down to the courthouse already. Martha had never been angrier. No one told her this, and they just decided to expect her to wait at Sophia's house how long? As Martha approached the courthouse on Main, she came upon a large crowd surrounding someone. Could it be Sophia? Martha parked her car as fast as she could and ran over to the crowd. People had signs up with Sophia's face, some depicting her with devil horns, others saying she deserved death. It must have been Sophia in that crowd. Martha just knew it. She pushed her way through, some people literally pushing her out of the way if she didn't have a sign. As she drew nearer to the center of the crowd, she realized the crowd was cheering. Cheering for what? Finally, she pushed her way through and found Sophia's mother, lying there on the floor. "Are you okay?" Martha yelled to her. There was no response. As she as she came closer, she heard slight, small murmurings coming from her mouth. It was too hard to make out what she was saying. Martha grabbed her and lifted her up. She was plenty alive, but something was clearly wrong. D- d- Dead, Sophia's mom wailed. "What?" Martha yelled. "My daughter! She's dead!" the mom screamed. Martha fell backwards, startled at the news. She couldn't process it. Her best friend dead, and people were cheering. Sophia was just 16. It was 2014. The year, it seemed monumental for them because they were finally in high school, and now her best friend was dead. "She's going straight to fucking hell," someone yelled as Sophia's mom stood up. "Shut the hell up," Martha yelled as she grabbed Sophia's mom by the arm and dragged her through the crowd. People spit on them and stomped on their feet. "We stand with Paul Roy," someone yelled. Eventually they made it through the crowd. Sophia's mom was covered in scratches, and Martha's feet were aching from the crowd stepping on them. Martha threw Sophia's mom into her car and got in. They both took a second to breathe, but Sophia never got that second. Her life was torn away from her. "What happened?" Martha shakily asked. She she was driving home last night, and her car, it it exploded. The mom sniffled. "What the hell?" Martha cried. "The police, they think it was a hate crime by one of the protesters, probably a family member of the boy that died." "So then, why are you here at the courthouse?" Martha asked. "Well, why else? I had to let these protesters know their jobs were over with. They could shut up and rest peacefully now that my daughter is dead," the mom cried. Martha just stared. She still couldn't believe it. Her best friend, dead. Where did I go wrong as a parent? Where? For her to send those nasty texts to that poor boy and have him kill himself. What the hell was wrong with her? She pressured him so much to kill himself. She told him no one would miss him nor love him if he died. She cried. I, I'm aware, miss, Martha responded. So, why did you continue to support her? Why did you continue to support my daughter? The mom said. I guess I just didn't want it to be true, you know? She'd been there my whole life, Martha said, sadness drowning her words. After that, there wasn't much to be said. It was just awkward. What was there to be said? Martha was about to say something but shut her mouth. It wouldn't have helped. Her best friend was dead. Her best friend convinced someone to kill themselves. And there's no way that anything can change that. This loss affected everyone in her life, including Sophia's mother. Present day. A knock was heard upon the door, not by anyone, except a corpse. Another knock, after another knock, after another. Soon enough the knocks turned to bangs. The corpse that heard the knocks were the dead house. The house had no response. It stayed silent to the knocks. No response to any knock, just like a corpse. Open up! Rob! You in there? Larry the police officer yelled. Mr. South had been missing for 6 days now, ever since him and Mr. South cornered Sophia in the office and threatened to arrest her. No sign of him had been heard or seen anywhere. Larry eventually eased down and realized Sophia wouldn't report him to the police for misconduct, and she wouldn't report him for anything. She just didn't seem like a threat. But his dear friend, where was he to be? Mr. South had never disappointed like this. He had never disappeared like this before. He had a school to run, a wife to love, and simply a life to live. Eventually Larry remembered that Mr. South kept a spare key under his mat. He snatched it from the filthy mat that read, "Welcome," and unlocked the door. From what he could see, the house was filthy, trash strewn around, streaks of dirt or shit on the floor. The house, to sum up, was a hovel, dingy and gross. Larry had to cover his nose as to not vomit everywhere. The stench was fucking horrible. The fuck is wrong with this dude? He said to himself. Rob, you in here? Larry began searching the house. First the kitchen, then the living room, bedrooms, and bathrooms. There was nothing, and no one. Zero clue about where he had been. Soon enough he came upon the master bedroom. Inside, Rob's wife. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't aware you were here. I knocked so much. I'm sorry, Larry said. She didn't really say anything, but she also didn't want him to leave. She was in her bra and panties, throwing the blankets over herself to conceal it all, to conceal her shiny breasts. You can come back in, she said as she fixed her hair. How can I help you, officer? Why are you so, I don't know. Why are you acting like this when your husband's missing? So content, Larry asked. Missing? She asked. You're telling me you haven't spoken to him in 6 days? Larry responded. Well, he goes off sometimes for long periods of time. We are in an open relationship now. I didn't really expect him to be missing, though. Did you say 6 days? She said worriedly. 6, he confirmed. Well, allow me to check his location? She asked. He motioned for her to go on and look. She opened her phone and checked. It it says his location. It's on. It's it, it's unavailable. What do you think could have happened? She said shakily. Honestly, I don't know, he responded. When was the last time you saw him? Well, on Monday, he said he was invited to a teacher's house for dinner. I'm not sure who, though. Larry's eyes lit up. A teacher's house? He knew where Mr. South went. Obviously, it was Sophia's home. There was nothing else to figure out. He knew what he had to do. And you're sure? You're sure that he went to a teacher's house, Larry confirmed. Yes, I'm sure. Larry literally ran out of the house. He knew Mr. South went to Sophia's house, but why? He thought everything was fairly clear in the office when he talked to Sophia with South. Something was off, and he knew it. He sat in his car for a second, taking a breath and opening his laptop. He entered Sophia's info and gathered her address and directions. It read, Gonzalez Sophia, 12640 Memorial Way, room 36. He got it. Her address, her info, everything. Never in a million years did he envision himself doing this. Chasing down a principal being held captive by his employer? He found room 36 of Memorial Way and began banging on the door. It didn't really do anything last time, nor would it this time. He had to find some sort of way in. Larry began looking around. Nothing was really there, just a pot and a welcome mat. He checked under the mat and pot, 'cause why not? But there was nothing there. Housekeeping, he said in a pretty voice as he knocked. Fuck, never mind. He walked around the building till he saw a fire escape. At the top of the escape was a closed window. Looked like a window for a shower because it was tinted. Larry began walking toward the fire escape ladder. He was deathly afraid of heights. All right. 1, 2, 3, he said as he climbed higher and higher, counting his steps. In a way, this counting consoled him. People looked at him through their windows as he climbed past their rooms, some in fear, others not caring at all, others not even seeing. As long as he didn't stop on their floor, no one really cared. till he reached the top, Sophia's floor. It was there. You could hear the bustling city. You could see it breathe. The city was so alive. The window was fairly thick, but not thick enough for him. He grabbed his baton and slammed it straight through. The shatter of the glass was literally ear-piercing. No movement was heard inside. Simple silence. The lights were turned off in the bathroom. He couldn't see anything if he looked through the window. He slowly put his leg through the window, careful not to cut it. Then his other leg, and he rested them on a soap holder. There was nowhere else to put them. As he brought the rest of his body through the window, the soap holder collapsed under him, and his arm fell straight into glass that was still a part of the window. The glass was so sharp it went straight through his arm. The agony and pain at that moment was horrendous. He fell over, snapping the glass from the window and falling into the tub. His land was cushioned, squelching and dripping, the smell of rot. He grabbed his arm in pain, leaving the glass shard in his arm so he didn't bleed out. "What the hell is that smell?" he said as he pulled out his phone from his jean pockets. He kind of froze. He knew what he was on top of, but he didn't want to truly accept or acknowledge it. He turned on the flashlight and slowly turned it over to what he was laying on. It was Mr. South. He screamed, muffled, as he covered his mouth with his palm. He threw himself out of the tub and held the flashlight on Mr. South. His face was missing, cut off from flesh and bone, and left sitting on the toilet in a Ziploc bag. What the fuck? I have to get out of here now. Something else was missing. His cock and balls cut off and placed in his mouth. Larry ran out of the bathroom ready to throw up. The immediate relief he felt after smelling the fresh air outside of the bathroom was otherworldly. The fuck is going on here? He said to himself. He kind of took a moment to look around, stunned by the ambiance. The difference of atmosphere from the bathroom to the rest of the house was ginormous. It was fairly dark in the apartment, not a lot of activity. He walked through the hall, a gun in his hand, a taser in the other. Something in him told him not to turn on the lights. It was just an instinct. He didn't want to feel like he was walking around in his own home, intruding. For some reason, he still wanted to respect it. Yet he made his way through each bedroom, checking under beds, destroying cabinet drawers, ripping up carpet. Any clue to what was going on here? He knew for a fact Sophia did this. But he needed a motive. She was probably far off in Mexico by now. Eventually he came upon the kitchen drawers. Down below the third drawer on the bottom, he opened it. Nothing was in it. It was completely empty. This is strange. Completely empty drawer? He wondered. Not to mention, the base of the drawer was much higher than the other drawers. He felt around the corners and bottoms of the drawer until suddenly his hand hit something. It was a dent in the bottom. He dug his nail into the dent and slowly lifted it up. As he expected, a false bottom lifted up and revealed the real drawer. The drawer was tidy and neat. It had passports, some money, and documents. Not much to see from far away. Larry leaned in closer to pick a passport, flashlight shining directly on it. He opened it. How could this be? Who is this woman? The passport, it was leaving him in shock. Michelle Morales, read the passport, along with Sophia's face on it. Who the hell is Michelle? He whispered to himself. Larry continued to dig through the drawer, and he found another passport labeled Sofia Gonzalez. Her face clear as day on the passport. Underneath the passports lay a newspaper article. Two, in fact. Teen girl Michelle Morales presumed dead after fiery car explosion. She was likely subject to a hate crime after her trial went public where she convinced ex-boyfriend to end his life. Oh my god, all this time. Sophia was never Sophia. She's whoever this Michelle girl is. She must be living under a false name, a false pretense, ever since she was convicted at this manslaughter trial. Larry wondered. At the very bottom lay the last newspaper. On the newspaper was a picture of Sophia, or, in her past identity, Michelle. She was on the front, a picture of her, her mother, and her dearest friend, Martha. Headlined, Dead Girl. Michelle Morales' family and friends start fundraiser for getting the criminally insane help. This, in memoriam for Michelle. What the fuck? She had everyone fooled. All this to avoid a few years in jail? Larry whispered to himself. As he began to wrap his head around this, suddenly he froze. The reason Mr. South had to die must have been planned. Mr. South almost got Sophia arrested, which would reveal her true identity when fingerprinted. If she was arrested, she'd be truly ID'd, so she had to kill him. So clearly, she had to kill Larry next. Hell, he had the power to arrest, and he nearly did. He tightened his grip on his gun and took the safety off. Slowly he closed the drawer and walked towards the front door with the documents in his hand. He began to make his way out of the front door, 1 foot out, and he ran as fast as he could, wind blowing in his hair. He reached his car and put the keys in. The car would not start. Again, trying it, the car wouldn't start. Slowly he looked in his mirror and saw Sophia, sitting in the back seat with a gun pointing towards his head. He nearly let out a yelp before Sophia could silence him. Shut your fucking mouth and don't say a word, Sophia said angrily. Larry just looked at her. Tell me, Larry, big scary cop Larry, what did you think you would get out of this? A medal for unveiling the greatest mystery of all. Guess what, Dick? This was never any of your business. I had my whole life sorted through. You just had to mess it up, huh? Sophia said as she clicked the gun on. I won't tell anyone, I swear, Larry quivered. Why did you have to see that body? Why? Sure, I would have killed you anyway, but this makes it harder for me. Sophia laughed. At that moment, Larry realized she didn't even know he knew her deeper secret. Her secret of abandoning her hometown and changing her name because of a manslaughter charge. You know, Sophia, I have worked day in. You're the type of Pearson I purposely aim straight at the head, Larry said. Ironic, as I'm the one with the gun to your head, she replied. Now give me your fucking gun, Larry. He slowly reached towards his pocket and grabbed the gun, sliding it into Sophia's left palm. As he drew his arms back, he snagged his computer and slammed it into her face, throwing her whole head back into the car window. Her gun went off, piercing through the front window shield. Larry shot up out of his seat as Sophia got up, both guns in her hand, and opened the car door. Just as he opened it, he slammed the door straight into her legs, simultaneously breaking both of them. Sophia screamed in agony as she threw the door open and shot the car in anger. Larry had already booked it down into a hospital across the street. Sophia concealed the guns in her coat and limped over to the hospital, stopping traffic as she crossed the road. A passerby offered to help her. As she always did, she took up the opportunity. Jesus, what happened to your legs? The driver asked. It doesn't matter. Just get me to the hospital, she responded. He dragged her in as fast as possible to where he could see Larry running up the stairs and out of her sight. The stairs were steep, deathly steep. She commanded the man to take her to the elevator, where she shot him dead. Ding! The doors opened. There he was, standing right in front of the doors at the second floor. Larry, Larry, Larry. The stress you have caused me, baby. Sophia laughed while crying. Larry. Just drop it. Larry's eyes fixated on the innocent man bleeding out. She limped towards him as she spit on the floor, right next to the passerby, who stopped for her. Every step she made, a crunch was heard from her legs. Maybe it was the adrenaline that allowed her to walk. Maybe it was just her. She was crazy enough to enjoy that pain. Sophia walked around Larry. He backed up, leading her, two in front of the stairs. I always knew something was off with you, Larry said. Sophia suddenly put down her guns. A tear fell from her eye. You may think I'm evil for doing this, but my life here is at stake, she said, her lips quivering. Please, just allow me to explain, she said. By now, nearly the entire hospital was surrounding and watching. Something you must learn, Larry, is that woman will never give up to a man. We will fight till we have what is right, she said. And you think killing is what is right, Sophia? He said as he inched closer to her. Give me the guns, Sophia. She slid them over, crying. I just want to be a kid again. And trust me, you can be, Larry said. He put all his weight into his left foot and threw his right foot into her chest, launching her towards the bottom of the stairs. Fuck you, Michelle, he yelled. Her land at the bottom of the stairs was loud and deafening. There she laid, legs broken, neck snapped, and back shattered. The substitute finally got her wish. That was to teach. She taught the world, don't fuck with a vengeful man.